The Story of the United States, A Journey from Colony to Superpower. Chapter 1. The Arrival of the First Settlers. In the early 1600s, Europeans set sail across the Atlantic Ocean in search of new opportunities. They arrived in a vast land that would eventually become the United States. The first major settlement was in Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607, established by the English. The new settlers faced harsh winters, disease, and hunger, but they were determined to build a new life. They learned to cultivate crops like tobacco and corn, and slowly, new towns and cities began to form. At the same time, French and Spanish settlers were also exploring parts of what would become the United States. France controlled much of the land around the Mississippi River, while Spain ruled Florida and the Southwest. These early encounters with indigenous peoples were often marked by conflict, but over time, some alliances and trade relationships were formed. Chapter 2. The 13 Colonies and Growing Tensions. As the 1600s turned into the 1700s, Britain established 13 colonies along the eastern coast of North America. These colonies were diverse, each with its own economy, culture, and identity. The northern colonies focused on fishing, trade, and small-scale farming, while the southern colonies were known for large plantations, growing crops like tobacco and cotton. For many years, life in the colonies was relatively peaceful, but tensions began to rise in the mid-1700s as Britain imposed taxes on the colonists to pay for the debts from the French and Indian War. The famous Stamp Act of 1765 taxed newspapers, legal documents, and other printed materials. Colonists felt this was unfair because they had no representation in the British Parliament. This led to protests across the colonies with slogans like, "No taxation without representation." The anger grew, culminating in the Boston Tea Party of 1773. Colonists disguised as Native Americans boarded British ships and dumped an entire shipment of tea into Boston Harbor to protest a new tea tax. Chapter 3. The Fight for Independence. Tensions reached a breaking point in 1775 when British troops attempted to seize weapons stored by the colonists in Lexington and Concord. This event sparked the first battles of the American Revolution. The 13 colonies, united in their desire for independence, formed the Continental Congress and appointed George Washington as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. In 1776, the colonies made their boldest move yet. They declared independence from Britain. The Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, was signed on July 4, 1776. The document boldly stated that all men are created equal and have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was a revolutionary idea that inspired people not just in America, but across the world. However, winning independence would not be easy. The war lasted for 8 years, and the Continental Army was often outmatched by the British forces. But thanks to strategic alliances, especially with France, and the resilience of the American soldiers, the revolutionaries eventually emerged victorious. In 1783, Britain officially recognized the independence of the United States with the Treaty of Paris. Chapter 4. Building a Nation. After the Revolution, the United States faced a new challenge: how to govern a free country. In 1787, a group of delegates gathered in Philadelphia to create a constitution, a set of laws that would define the structure of the new government. The Constitution established 3 branches of government: the executive, the president, the legislative, Congress, and the judicial, the courts. This system was designed to ensure a balance of power and prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. The Bill of Rights, added in 1791, protected individual freedoms such as freedom of speech, religion, and the press. With the Constitution in place, the United States began to grow, both in population and territory. In 1703, the country acquired a vast amount of land through the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the nation overnight. Chapter 5. Westward Expansion and Growing Pains. The 1800s were a time of rapid expansion for the United States. Many Americans believed in the concept of manifest destiny, the idea that the nation was destined to spread across the entire continent. Settlers moved westward, establishing new states and cities along the way. However, this expansion came at a great cost. The indigenous peoples of North America were pushed off their lands, often violently. Entire nations of Native Americans were forced to move westward, leading to tragic events like the Trail of Tears. The expansion also created deep divisions within the country, particularly over the issue of slavery. The southern states relied heavily on slave labor to work their plantations, while many in the north wanted to abolish slavery. This tension event